knowing that death is there and it exists, and it's up to you how strongly you feel about it in a positive or negative sense. But I still know that one day I would have to go and I want to live forever. And if this is a calling for me to kind of just embrace the life that I have right now, then let it be like that.
Microphone check, 1 2. What is this? It's the 5'7" assassin in the podcast business. I am your host, Rohan Patra, the rap music plug at your service. Here we are again at the end of the rainbow. In recent years, the Canadian hip hop scene, particularly in Montreal, has been growing in size and quality. Backxwash, today's guest, may be the scene's most captivating act, sporting an eclectic sound that pulls from metal, industrial, noise, trap, horrorcore, conscious hip-hop, and pop. Backxwash can and has really done it all. Her latest record, Only Dust Remains, showcases the latest evolution of her artistry, featuring boldly melodic songwriting, climactic hooks, and a lucid meditation on death. In this episode, we walk through her artistic journey so far, key influences that have informed her musical style, the importance of identity in her music, and the making of her magnum opus, Only Dust Remains. The Rap Music Plug podcast, presented by QLC TV, is the remedy to the I don't have anything good to listen to problem. Through in-depth artist interviews, album reviews, and general rap commentary on the best that the underground rap scene has to offer, this is your one-stop shop to knowing what to add to your queue, play next, or pop into your record player. Welcome to the show. Backxwash, how you doing today?
I'm doing okay yourself?
I'm great. I'm good. This new album, brilliant. It's a real honor and pleasure to have you on to like dive into this record and then just kind of how you approach music in general. Like this one especially has really compiled some pretty rave reviews, acclaim from fans and critics alike. I think you also have Polaris Prize nominations for a couple of the tracks, which is crazy. I know you've already won a Polaris Prize, but that's still really nice to see the that kind of response. How's the reaction been for you to the acclaim, to the response that this record's generated so far?
Yeah, it feels awesome. Happy to be supported, because we knew we're making it. We didn't know how people are going to react to it because it's such a deviation from the previous era of sounds, and it just felt like I was able to reinvent myself again, because I felt like with the first two EPs that I put out, uh first two EPs in the album, I kind of like after that reinvented the sound and just the whole approach to it, and then now it just felt like another reinvention. So it was nice to see that people resonated with it. I think it's my favorite one I've done so far.
Yeah, likewise for me as well. And so as a means to better understand
Yeah,
your musical journey, your life journey is also just fascinating how you moved from Zambia to Canada. I think so you were
yeah,
in Vancouver before landing in Montreal where you currently reside.
yeah.
And I wonder, like, what was your exposure to music and rap specifically before coming to Canada? And then, like, how did that work when it came to getting into the community once you moved to Canada?
Yeah, I mean, we grew up listening to like a ton of music. My sister was always into music, and I used to be into, Casey and JoJo and Drew Hill, all of that when I was younger because I thought I could sing. I couldn't. And then I saw Mace rapping his verse for More Money, More Problems, the one with B.I.G. And sadly Diddy. But I heard Mace rapping and I thought, this is just the coolest I've ever seen somebody look and sound. I was just like, this is so dope, because he's like laid back and he's got so much swagger.
Yeah.
I just thought like Mace was the coolest person to ever exist. So I asked my sister, like, what is he doing? Is he like singing? Is this like poetry? And it's like, nah, this is rapping. So she kind of told me like the kind of like framework behind it. I was so excited. I went to like write a verse, and she read it, and she was like, "Oh, you're supposed to rhyme." And I was like, "Oh shit." So it just developed into just being obsessed with the genre itself in terms of approach to sound and making beats and writing raps and listening to albums and the whole eras that I've gone through in Zambia from getting really into like conscious hip hop, that era with like like Hormone and Lupe Fiasco, Food and Liquor, and like the earlier Kanye stuff, and then
Was
being
this while you were still in
yeah,
Zambia?
yeah, this is
Okay,
back
okay.
still in Zambia, and
Nice,
then
nice.
being obsessed with like punchline rappers and being like the hugest like Cassidy and Papoose fan. Just all of that was happening, back home, and it was really exciting. And every day we used to wake up like, how do we become better than we actually was? And we were making like a ton of music, like a lot of beats, like a ton of music, which wasn't really going anywhere, but we would record it and we would hear it back and we'd be like excited by that. There's like no other rush. And then, when I came to Canada, I had like, okay, I'm part of like an immigrant family, and you know, they're looking at me to uh, kind of like support.
Did
Uh,
they come with you, or did you leave them and
my
came?
brother and my sister are already there, already
Okay.
here, but you know, a lot of the idea is that a lot of us have to chip in,
Yeah, exactly.
and you know, I kind of stopped because I knew how much of a distraction the music is going to be. So I was like, if I continue doing this music stuff, I don't know if I'll concentrate like in school and stuff like that. So I stopped for a bit, and then um, as years passed by, I slowly go back into it when I was moving back to Montreal.
Especially when you got to Montreal, like, did you find that the creative community out there was, supportive of your music, or was this something that you really kind of had to carve out for yourself and kind of build it
Uh,
from scratch?
I think it was a bit of both, right? So this is 2017, right? And the climate between 2017 and 2025 or 2024 or 2023 looks very different if you're queer and rapping, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, the way I would do it in Montreal was I would go to these open mics, these cyphers, these battles, and I would just like rap there because that's where they had the microphones and equipment. So I just go there and just do my thing because that's where I wanted to practice from. And um, it was kind of a mixed bag. Some people were like supportive, um, you know, they're supportive, but some people were like not really for it. And I guess in a sport like that, you're going to meet all types of people. So the beginning was like really difficult. Booking shows, extremely difficult. I guess nobody really wanted to book me then, right? And I'm a new person just came to Canada, don't really have any connections, and even getting a show, getting a show just like open for like 10 minutes is like, extremely hard and difficult. And then when you do perform, you kind of like receive all of these like comments and microaggressions. So
Yeah.
um, it was very different at the beginning. And I say that because I think comparing it to today, the experience would be slightly different than it would have been in 2017. I think with more like queer musicians out in the open, um, you know, we're a bit more in those spaces. But
Right.
back then, the world like queer musicians for sure, but like a visible rapper, uh, there were not a lot that I could point to. So
Mm.
it was very difficult. And then I find a community that actually fucks with like queer people, and I was able to start getting shows from them. I think it's all about finding community, and community helps a lot. I think that's the advice that I give to people a lot. It's like finding community. If you ever want to start rapping and you're queer, make sure you find a community that kind of like supports you or does a similar thing.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're saying in just like 8 years or so from now, in the
Yeah,
past, that it is pretty different. And
yeah,
even when I look at it more macro, because I have a feeling we're like very close in age, and so like 2017 me and 2017 my understanding of like the political climate, cultural climate then,
yeah.
it is pretty crazy how like it's not like necessarily like I what I would say is like I feel like certain conversations were just not even being had,
Oh
let
yeah,
alone being like at least to someone who's not in that community, like it was
yeah,
just completely not even a thing people were talking about.
yeah.
And I can imagine for you how different that would be and how potentially like difficult that would be. But I mean, it's good to hear at least that there is some, progress and some kind of community that is developing.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like how I rap the way I rap because I've heard people say it's aggressive. But when you go into those spaces, you kind of have to like stand your ground and kind of like rap from the heart. Um, the climate has changed definitely. I would say even for the worst. Like the conversations are there, but it's changed even for the worst.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, sometimes it's like I'd rather you not have an opinion on this than have a
yeah.
fucking dumb one, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny though. Like being able to look back and being able to be like, oh, I wasn't able to perform there and now I'm performing there.
Hmm. And I'm curious to unpack this idea of like that whole concept of representation because
Yeah.
like as it relates to your experience in the hip hop space, because I feel like my feelings on it, it's something I mentioned on the show before, have kind of changed with time.
Yeah.
Like initially, my thoughts were that it was basically like the whole idea of representation felt kind of like liberal lip
Mm,
service and like tokenized, individualized aesthetics versus real structural change. But then
yeah.
over time, as I've noticed it in like in my context with like seeing being a lot more ingratiated into like spaces of like South Asian media, both like
Yeah.
music, arts, like TV media.
Yeah.
It was pretty meaningful to me, and I didn't expect how much I was appreciating it, how much I felt more like welcome and like seen, like all those
Yeah.
things that people talk about. I was actually starting to feel it. So I wonder about how conscious are you of that like potential influence and impact of your kind of you being a trans artist in hip hop? Like, do you feel like there's a responsibility to represent something bigger than yourself, or is that not something you're really like worrying all too much about?
Um, Personally, I'm not really personally I look at it like this. If somebody sees me as a point of representation, that's fucking dope, right? That's amazing because when I was starting out, if I could point to someone and say, oh, there's an artist like me who's doing something there in the same space that I'm at, that's sick for me. I feel I'm much more welcomed. But I don't make it a point, you know,
Yeah.
to do it. I don't you know, say I'm doing this for the sake of representation. I'm just I guess doing this because it's who I am and I like to do it. But if I'm not against somebody seeing me as a point of representation and being like, that's dope that there's somebody like that in there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that speaks to, like there's this like kind of two ways of doing it in a sense of like approaching that idea like where you could like I could see it as being on two sides where you could, want people to focus on that aspect of your
Yeah,
identity in your music, but then there's another side which I think is very valid too. And I've
yeah,
heard this from other artists where they're like, I don't really want that to be the focus. Like the fact that you fuck with, you're okay with me and you're accepting me, great, but like
yeah,
I want you to focus on, the beats or like my other
yeah,
the aesthetics or just like the shit that I'm doing in my music that isn't about that. And I
Yeah.
can kind of understand both sides where it's like I could
Yeah.
understand they could also be like you're like, no, I don't I get it, cool, but like
Yeah.
what about my rhyme scheme here, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think but at the same time, right? If I'm like seeing like a local show, right? And I see like three dope queer artists that are, kind of like being booked less effectively than other dudes on the lineup who I know that's good. I kind of feel a certain way, like, oh, you went with that person when you could have go with this one who's much doper. I think representation in that sense, I'm like, okay, I do have a I do have a soft spot for that, but in terms of the music for sure, I think people have a tend to other me sometimes.
Hmm.
I think a lot of things just with the identity and just like the approach to music as well. Um, you know, I think I skirt on genre and gender lines, so I'm usually othered in conversations. I saw someone said, "Oh, I like this album, but I don't really think it's a hip hop album." I'm like, what? No, it's a straight hip hop album.
Hmm.
I'm not the type of person to be like, oh, I'm not a rapper, I'm an artist. Like, that's terrible. Like, I'm a rapper
Yeah,
through and through.
that's a derogatory statement now nowadays. It's been ruined. Maybe
Yeah.
back in the day that was seen as cool, but
Oh,
now we all know what you mean and it's whack.
yeah. Remember back in 2016 when Uzi and them used to be like, "Oh, I'm not a rap, I'm a rock star."
Yeah.
I'm so happy we went past that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, like I feel I'm trying to think of like big artists in the past too. Like I know Kanye said stuff like that, but
Yeah.
like when Kanye said it, I never took it as that. I took it as him being like, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to like separate myself from hip hop. I'm trying to separate myself from like humans because I'm a god. Like I remember at one point, like that's literally like where it's like, okay, you're on some other shit. Like
Yeah,
you're not
yeah,
even really in the same. You're not even trying to do that. It's like
yeah,
it's is what it is. But
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, no, like your music, like especially it's funny how you said like you're really skirting a lot of different lines musically, identity, like all that shit is just there and it's so fascinating because like you look at something on like Black Sailor Moon, if someone says that's not hip hop, like what are they
yeah,
talking about? And there's some just like crazy flows that anybody who's into like um like I think a lot of like horrorcore, just like trap stuff, like
yeah,
Memphis. I know I saw some interview you did in the past. You were talking about like the influences of Memphis rap in your
yeah, yeah.
style, and I can hear that in some of those songs.
Hell yeah,
And especially early on in your career,
yeah,
you routinely integrated these very like heavy sounds
yeah,
in like metal or something like that into your
yeah,
music. What
yeah.
drew you to mixing your take on rap with these heavier styles of music? Like, why does that connect with your spirit or fit nicely with what you want to do in your art?
I think it's just influences, right? So I grew up listening to like hip hop for sure and sure, but I was also a fan of like just like metal and rock. Um, 14 years old, 13 years old, I was a fan of like Linkin Park heavy, and Linkin Park have an important part to play on just like a lot of us like metalheads that rap as well, because they had like a lot of these just like heavy like metal beats and Shinoda is like rapping on top of it, right? And he answered the question of what would it sound like if I had to rap over these like sounds.
Hmm.
And even going back to not just Shinoda, but I'll just bring up Lil Jon. Lil Jon was a fantastic genre bender.
Mm.
He had this one song, I think it samples like Iron Man, and it's called Let's Go, which is this crunk, uh, kind of like crunk song on top of like these metal chugging like guitars with like his vocals, because his vocals are also like otherworldly in the sense of they're like aggressive, strong, and just so powerful. He sounds like a front man for like a hardcore band. And just like shit like I ain't never scared. I ain't never scared, and like how aggressive that shit sounds. And what was the other song? The standing like a rock star. Is it like standing like a rock star? Totally do. Standing like a something like that. Something like that. Yeah, just like in the 2006 and 2005, there was a bit of that going on. And I was a fan of just like metal, new metal, crunk, hip
Mm.
hop. And we had a lot of spots where people were genre bending. I mean, the same year, I think Collision Course came out, and it was just Jay-Z rapping over these like
Yeah.
Linkin Park beats. And I was a fan of like a lot of those styles and a lot of those musics. So I think kind of like mixing the stuff right now just comes from the stuff that I used to like when I was younger.
Interesting. Yeah, like the rap rock type of blends have been like really interesting because
Yeah,
and I think it's super polarizing. I think a
yeah,
lot of people hate it, a lot of people like it too.
yeah,
Like obviously Linkin Park was so popular
yeah,
for a
yeah,
reason.
yeah,
Um yeah, like genre bending is fascinating because like you know you not only have you melded the heavy sounds into your music, also very poppy music too. Like you clearly have an affinity to that. You just kind of spoke about some of it.
yeah.
And the fact that you produce like the vast majority of your music is self-produced by yourself, like what other than like maybe like a Lil Jon who you mentioned, like were there any album or artists that like laid out a blueprint for inspiring you
The
to do this genre blending these sounds together that inspired you and like the way you look at music?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really, really good question. I'm trying to go back to when I was back in Zambia, making the beats, and what was I listening to? I was listening to I was listening to definitely College Dropout, late
Hmm.
registration there, and I think there was some genre bending samples there, but not to the extent in which it really informed my style right now.
Yeah, it would be more of his later stuff that I
Y-
could see, but at that point you were a
Yeah,
lot more active
yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
At that point, I was a lot more active. I used to listen to a lot of Pharrell beats too. He would have his hand in so many like pots.
Yeah, I think Pharrell and pop
Yeah,
R&B mixing with
yeah,
hip hop, he's one of like
yeah,
the forefathers. Him and Timbo
yeah.
as well.
You know what it is though? I think it's Timbaland.
Yeah.
I think Timbaland did that for me because we would like listen to these songs, right? And then we would say, where's the sample from? And then you look at the source of the sample, and it's just like I think he really liked kind of like Asian samples by that
Yes,
time.
he loved yeah, because like the amount of like he does a lot of Indian samples that I've come to learn that are like super
Yeah,
cool.
he got so many
Yeah.
of them, and when you look back and say, where did he get this from? And it just, I think, that kind of like exploded like the genre been inside of me. But the framework of just how to make a beat, that's definitely like College Dropout. That did that for me. College Dropout did that for me. College Dropout and any like Pharrell production from the earlier years. But my shit was like um Kanye used samples, and when I was back in Zambia, I hated samples because
Mm.
I had this elitist mind of like, why the fuck would I use samples when I could come up with my own shit, And I would like make these beats using my own melodies, and then I would listen to Kanye's beats, and I would be like, why doesn't my shit sound like that,
Hmm.
And I would think like it's the mixing, right? And it's like, no, the sample adds so much like flavor to the beat that you're making. So yeah, I would say I'm inspired a lot by like no, just the three main guys around that time, just the Kanye's, the Pharrells, and the Timbalands for different reasons.
Yeah, for
Oh,
different reasons for
yeah,
sure. Yeah, like I definitely hear Kanye influence in you. Like
sadly.
even like the like I hear in ways something that I find was kind of like underappreciated or under talked about like that dark twisted fantasy era Kanye, which was like he briefly, because he never really like did this for much longer,
Yeah,
but he really dove into being inspired by like prog rock.
yeah,
And like you heard it directly on like the King Crimson sampled
yeah,
Power, but like the approach,
yeah,
that's something actually that I feel is very similar to you, but with metal, in
yeah,
that even on this later out this new album that like doesn't have the super heaviness that like your past work had.
yeah,
One of the things that is pretty fascinating is that like I feel the ethos of metal is still there in these progressions.
yeah,
Like the climax, the huge hooks, like
yeah,
the progressions, like the
yeah,
epic rise and falls, like that's very metal coded.
yeah,
And like it's
yeah.
really fascinating how you do that too. Because Kanye did that with like the pushing the limit of like making these elaborate instrumentation on that record, and you do that like really well on
Oh,
this
thank you,
new album.
thank you. Yeah, I think what kind of like inspired me to go back to doing that was because I did before when I was younger, but not to the extent that I was doing it now. But Tyler is fantastic at just like
Hmm.
general compositions, right? So listening to Tyler beats and listening to Tyler songs, you find that okay, the hook is here, the verse starts, right? But it's not just a verse where you've got this rhythm section that you're repeating for 16 bars, right? It's this crazy ass like rhythm section that has all of these parts building up on top of each other, and every 4 bars can be different, or every 8 bars can be so much more different than the rest. And there's these big instrumentations. And I was just listening to that and I was like trying to get like a compositioner's mind from it. And going back to Bjork as well, post and getting into the
Hmm.
compositioner's mind of it, of, oh, I should approach this less as a beat and more as a composition. So during the making of Only Dust Remains, I guess a good example of this is like Wake Up, where there'll be sections where the piano, I'll be like, oh, let me copy like the first 4 bars of the piano to this other part. And then it's like, all right, I'll copied it, but I just want to change one note to like give it flavor so it
Hmm.
looks like sounds more continuous then. It sounds like it's got more tension to it. And you know, just like learning that from the stuff that Tyler does as well has really like informed the new way that I make music. And I think a lot of that was done in like, as you said, my beautiful Doctors of Fantasy as well. Um, Devil in a New Dress, where the sample is hitting for a bit, and then the piano keys come in, and then the guitars come in, and there are a few places where the drums change as
Hmm.
well, and the chops also change, and I think that just makes it like really interesting. And there's no right or wrong way of doing it because I've listened to a lot of records where somebody just loops 4 bars and the beat is like the most beautiful thing I've ever
Yeah,
heard in my
yeah.
life. So there's no wrong or right way of doing it.
Yeah, I think something you're showing on this new album is that like you're showing how you can bring like what we traditionally associate with pop music, which is like that composition mind frame, but it's not like the music needs to be like super poppy necessarily. It's
Yeah,
just like the approach, and I think that is like a superpower that some of the greatest hip hop artists have, where they can be pretty experimental still, but it's
yeah,
just but there's some finesse to like how it all comes together that makes it
yeah,
really exciting.
yeah,
Um, and when we look at the journey to creating Only Dust Remains, it's notable that you took a the longest break you have yet, at least since like start more consistently releasing music,
yeah,
between this record and the last. Like
yeah.
what caused you to take the break that was more extended, and how did that added time and space benefit you when creating this new album?
Yeah, I think it was more learning from my partner. I was having a conversation with my partner, and my partner was just telling me, you don't have to rush into it. Because when I did God is Nothing, I went straight into I Lie Here and then went straight into his happiness, and that one burns you out. And two, you don't really have a chance to sit with the records. a lot of those records, the verses I would write like the previous night, before going to like the studio the next day. And which, for that time it was fine because those records are more about the feeling in that moment.
Yeah.
And these new records are much more deliberate. So being able to take time with it, I would make like the beat for Wake Up, and maybe like in a few uh, in a few weeks or a few months, I have an idea to say, oh, let me just switch this part around rather than keep it going the same way, or let me just change like the second verse to have this totally different progression than the first, and just like taking time with it allowed me to um, not rush it and be able to come back to the composition with new ideas. So when we were making non-industrial mains, we were able to, just sever the moment of the songs. And I was writing like, when I started writing the songs, I was writing like 4 bars a day because like I shouldn't rush. I should just like,
Hmm.
really think hard about what I'm trying to do. And it was a very, very fun experience. Um, I like to plot a lot of the instruments myself. So, the pianos, the strings, and, the synths and all those parts, the drums. I like to do that myself. So it was a very satisfying experience when you have a certain idea and you see it work out,
Hmm.
like after you plot it. And because you took your time to it, you're much more satisfied with the end product. So, yeah, right now, I think I want to take much longer uh, releasing projects.
Mm. Yeah, no, I mean the results are there. Pardon the interruption, but if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe, like the video, and hit the bell as well. And if you're checking this out on podcast platforms, please follow the show, leave a rating, leave a review if possible. This will help the algorithm do its thing and get more people tapped in. Thank you so much. Now back to the show. And like your albums do consistently have their own sound, like their own approach that's unique between your within your discography, but this one is like especially unique. Could you describe the that vision, like as you were saying, like when you were plotting out this record, like what was
Yeah.
that musical vision you were aiming to bring to fruition on Only Dust Remains?
Yeah, I think I wanted something dramatic, grand, but also the funny thing is I think this is my happiest record. So yeah, I wanted something grand, dramatic, big, deliberate, thought out, right? And um, it's not even like a situation where before like I started working on the project, I started thinking of like it's gonna be like this, it's gonna be like that, it's gonna be like that. Like it was more of me making beats. Like I made Wake Up, and then I was like, oh, this is cool. Like maybe I'll write like a single, a song for it. And then the more that I started making beats, and the more that I just got into touch with like melody, I made more beats and I wrote more verses. And at first it was going to be like an EP, and then I had more ideas. Then it turned into like a mixtape, and then we heard the progression, and then I was like, oh, this is an album. So um, it was really nice to kind of like see it all come together. And the story paths themselves, like the narrative path throughout the first song to the last song, I think just craftily came together by itself almost.
Mm.
Because I wrote Wake Up as a standalone. Um, but when I made the beat for Black Lazarus, I was like, oh, this sounds like someone who's trying to who comes back from the dead and is now forced to kind of live with the horrors of existing. And then the rest of it just flowed the way I wanted it to.
Yeah, like that you're talking about the narrative arc there too.
Yeah.
Like I feel this album progresses really nicely because it starts off more no, and not and maybe antagonistic, but just like more like in chaos, more
Yeah,
dark, I guess.
yeah.
But then we get to that all the way to that final song, which I think is like just incredible. Like it's
Oh, thank you.
breathtaking. It actually, you know what song it reminds me of?
Well,
The Touch by Daft Punk. And
oh,
the reason I say that is
awesome.
because it's really rare a song is like has such a big like it's really swinging for the fences with like the sweeping instrumentation.
Yeah.
It's really going all out like conjuring emotion and I remember that song Touch just being like one of those times where I'm like, man, like this could be really corny, but it's not. And I'm like just so enthralled with how this is just so fucking beautiful. And that the concluding crescendo, that the build, it's like it's beautiful, but notably as it relates to the arc, like I'm saying, it feels bright, it feels peaceful, and it was interesting. Like I was wondering what was your thought about making that the album's closer? Like why was that a notable, proper way to end the arc?
It's so like interesting. I had this beat made like around the same time that I was also afraid of the same thing of it sounding corny. But I had this beat made the same time that I had Wake Up made. It had like a sample from Tracklib that I got, and it was like a throwaway. I was just practicing like chopping up samples, and then once I go further into the album, I was thinking like, how are we going to end this? And then you know, at the same time, we were thinking of titles for the album because the title was going to be The Fall and Rise of Black Lazarus. That was going to be the first like album title. And then Chachi said something about only dust remains, and I was like, wait, that is so fucking sick right there. And I really, you know, had a connection with the Only Dust Remains title. So,
What was
I,
that connection between that, like between you and the title?
oh, the connection between the album itself and the title?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's accepting that death itself exists, and I don't feel strongly negative or positive about it. It's just there, looming in the back. So I like Only Dust Remains because it's kind of has no strong emotions. It's just like this is the end.
Hmm.
And yeah, once I did the history of violence and Stairway to Heaven, I was thinking of a way to end it, and I remember the beat that I made, but I couldn't use the sample anymore because it was taken off Tracklib, so I couldn't clear it. So I replayed like some of the keys, and I wrote this verse on it when I was like in a plane, going to like Roadburn or something. And I was just like, oh, I was just writing this like little throwaway thing to like pass away the time, and I did it over like the new instrumental, and it fits so well. But I was thinking of the ending, right? Because um, I thought so far it had a nice progression up to where the synths come back with the new Simone sample and the pianos, and you know we were thinking of hiring a choir first, like a real choir, and then the choir that we're going to hire was super busy, so really just contacted like the best musicians that I know, which is Fernie Magella and Morgan Page, and they were able to send like their group choir vocals and we put them together, and I was like, yeah, this is exactly how it's going to end, and yeah, it just came together because of circumstances, like a lot of things on this album.
Yeah, I mean yeah, like that like the voice that's saying away from here in that like vocoder, I don't know what that's called, but
Oh
that like
yeah,
a
Pet Life. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like that also that actually now that I say it, that's also why it probably reminded me of Daft Punk because
Ah,
of their
yeah.
vocal shit too.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's so beautiful and I think yeah, like given that your description of the title and kind of like
Yeah.
that message, it it does feel like that. It's like it's just here it is the end, and it's not a nothing to be down about, you know.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that's interesting. And like what inspired? Because you're saying earlier about like exploring melody. Like, why did you want to go in that direction to be like, let me move away from the more abrasive
yeah,
metal influenced sound to
yeah.
something different?
I think taking a break over that year um made me realize how much I like pop music. I think I've said this like as well, but pop music of the 2000s had such amazing composition, right? I like to bring up Thong Song by Cisco, right? Thong Song by Cisco has got the main, sections with the drums and the hook, but the end, has got like three different like melody sections and composition sections. He's got the soulful part right at the end, and he's got like the climax towards like the end where the strings are going crazy, and it's got like the neo soulish like part of it. And me and my friends would have like YouTube parties, and we would just put on songs that we like that like
Mm.
bring us like joy. And it was a lot of songs like that. I remember this one, Jessica Simpson, Irresistible as well, which, the string section is so crazy in that one. But, the lyrics, you can throw them away if you want. Yeah, but, it's just like crazy, crazy instrumentation. Pharrell, listen to Frontin',
Mm.
crazy instrumentation as well, right? And, uh, it just made me kind of like connect with it in the sense of, oh, I think I like melody a lot. Like I think I connect to it a lot. We even going back further to listen to like Whole Malibu, it's like I connect with that a lot. And it's not because of like the textures that are in there, but it's just because of how the melodies are written down and what they make me feel. And just going back in time where it's like, oh, my favorite producers were these guys, not because of uh, you know, crazy percussions that were in there, but the way they would infuse like just like melody into the beats, and it made me realize that I really like that. Uh, like if I didn't like melody, my favorite producer would have been Swiss Beats, but it's not, or Bangladesh, but it's not.
Hmm.
But all of that just came together in the sense that made me realize that, oh, I think I really connect with melody as a concept. And then I had to like relearn all the music theory that I forgot when I was coming here, because when I was younger, I used to know it more. So after like learning that more, I was able to be somewhat dangerous enough to
Mm.
like come up with these beats and stuff. And yeah, I just sometimes I would have like ideas in my mind, but I wouldn't know where to start. And um, I think melody kind of like helped that a lot.
Yeah, it's a beautiful component of this album. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, when you're mentioning those artists, like especially someone like a Kanye, but also
Yeah,
Timbo and Pharrell, like Kanye's beats, like a lot of times I would like he's not the type of artist where like I would listen to it just as an instrumental and be like, "Oh my
yeah,
God, this is like just the most unbelievable thing I've ever heard." Like I
yeah,
would with maybe like a Dilla beat or any of
yeah,
my other favorites.
yeah,
I just always felt like I just don't understand it why, and I think it's the melody. It's like,
yeah,
why is this beat just so I want
yeah,
to listen to it all the
yeah,
time? It's because it obviously because he rapped too, like it just flowed so nicely. It just was so
yeah,
easy to listen to and so nice on the ears. He was such a magician with vocals,
yeah,
and that's again like the choir vocals on that final track, but then just like even the opening like vocal sample to the album, like it's
yeah,
very distinct, it's very memorable.
yeah,
It's a great way to kind of kick it off. But yeah, so like we're talking about the music a lot, but like lyrically there's so much passion, there's so much intentionality behind each song on this.
yeah.
Like what was that? Maybe I guess you kind of touched on it earlier, but I'm curious if you want to expand like the core messages that you wanted to drive home with this album that you wanted people to take away.
Yeah, I think it's just you know, knowing that death is there, and it exists, and it's up to you how strongly you feel about it in a positive or negative sense. I think after I made I Lie Here, which is I Lie Here was very kind of like really aggressive and antagonistic album, and it was a very painful album. And then this one just felt like, oh, this is like the calm after the storm. And I wanted to kind of paint that projection at first because Black Lazarus and Wake Up and Undesirable are a bit angrier in comparison to like Ninth Heaven and Dissociation. And that was like done deliberately because uh, I wanted to feel like a chameleon album, and I was hoping that that could kind of like drive the points forward. And it was pretty fun writing it as well. Like 4 bars a day, kind of like leaves room to be to ask where am I gonna take this?
Mm-hmm.
When I started writing Ninth Heaven, for example, I wanted to create this dialogue between me and Angel Gabriel, and Angel Gabriel, was going to play this Lucifer figure because most of the time people are approached by Lucifer, and Lucifer is the one that will kind of give you these bad deals in exchange for your soul. And Ninth Heaven was interesting because I started it on a Monday, and I had this refrain in my mind, which is the first 4 bars. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I had this idea over the next few days of, oh, what if like Angel Gabriel was saying this to me, and kind of like flipping that concept of man versus Lucifer to like woman versus like Angel Gabriel. Like Angel Gabriel is trying to convince me to kill myself and everything's gonna be all right. Yeah, it was pretty interesting record to write, but also wanted to drive the point that if anybody feels the same way, my uh, conclusion is that death exists, and it's up to you to ignore it, feel strongly positive about it, or strongly negative about it. Just know it exists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like the way you attack that idea from like a different way. Sometimes you're very literal about death and violence that occurs. There's direct references to what's happening in Gaza right now on the
Yeah,
on the album, for example. But then also you're a little more like abstract, for lack of a better word, with it too.
yeah,
And the way you're talking about this idea now, like it does feel very at peace with it, very like accepting. And I wonder, like, as you touch on these themes of like existentialism and death, like, did you, as you wrote the record, like, and ruminated on these ideas, like,
yeah.
was there anything notable that you, after going through that whole process, feel like you learnt about yourself or like learnt about the world through this reflection?
Yeah, I think it went back to, oh, like, it's not really nihilism, right? Because I guess the nihilist would say, what's the point? Everybody's gonna die anyway, right? But mine was mine was kind of coming out of this as saying, um, I think I'm in a different spot than I was 5 years ago, or 7 years ago, or 10 years ago. But I still know that one day uh, I would have to go and I want to live forever. And if this is a calling for me to kind of just embrace the life that I have right now, then let it be like that. And um, it's it's still something I'm still wrestling with because ever since like my childhood, I've had like a lot of kind of like suicidal thoughts, and I would struggle a lot with that. And this is essentially me. Like I have this analogy of if I'm walking down the street and there's this aggressive dog that always barks at me, and this is the only street that I can go to work every day back and from. I can either one attack the dog, but I don't know if I want to do that, or two learn to walk where the dog is without feeling so scared of being aggressive towards it. So just like learn to live with this dog that barks at me every time. So this is my essentially way of saying learn to live with the beast, but it's not really the beast because calling it a beast is kind of feed into the antagonism, right? So learn to live with the sting, uh, essentially.
No, that's very profound. Like that idea concept is very like much like what some philosophers that I'm familiar with. There's like this very famous thinker Jiddu Krishnamurti, and he his whole thing was about like to get over fear isn't about like analyzing it to a point where you don't feel like you should be afraid or
Yeah,
about ignoring, but it's about like just being purely aware. That's where
yeah,
presence comes to mind, where you're just aware of the fear,
yeah,
you see it, it's there, and then you just like you see it truly, then it
yeah,
kind of just goes away because like it's nothing's actually happening and then it kind of
exactly.
washes over you. But it's hard. Obviously,
Yeah,
it's hard.
it's,
But
it's difficult.
that is
Yeah,
feels like it always feels like the way to go, like the
yeah,
only way to go.
yeah,
Um and yeah, no, I mean I think it's just really cool hearing that this has you've been able to go through this transformation from where you were before, where you're feeling a lot more okay with, generally how things are going. So
yeah,
that's really awesome. And you were talking earlier about like earlier in this conversation about like how this you kind of had another reinvention of yourself
yeah,
artistically with marking with this new album as like the starting point again.
yeah.
And on the heels of concluding that trilogy of albums in 2022, what would you say is like the core philosophy or like defining trait that you see this new chapter of your career being? Like what do you think this is going to look like or feel
Um,
like?
that's a good question. Um, the way that I'm feeling right now, um, I think I have a feeling of, oh, it can go either two ways. I think one, this is the perspective of, I think I've closed the book on a lot of that part of just like um, what I was feeling and my outlook on it. And I've kind of like made it to the other side. And I can either tell someone else's story, or if I'm telling my own story, it can't be about that again, you know, because I'm learning to live with it, and I don't wanna. When you learn to live with something, you don't wanna exploit it, you know.
Hmm.
And I feel like if I go back to that, uh, it might feel not natural, and I don't like making music when it's not natural. So I think going forward, I'm either telling other people's stories, reminiscing of my stories, or um, you know, talking about something else.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Those both could go in really good ways, but I hear you on like, if you can't just make a song about how you're struggling with something when you actually truly are not at this
yeah,
point anymore. You can at some point you can like reach back in the past. Artists do that all the time,
yeah,
but there's a certain extent to where it just won't feel like it's coming from the
natural.
soul if it's
Yeah,
just,
yeah. There's
yeah.
there's a there's you know, an interview where somebody was talking about Redman's There Is a Dark Side,
Hmm.
and they're like telling Redman, like, that's one of my favorite albums. And it's like, I hate that album. It's like I was in such a bad place, and I don't really want to go back to that feeling. Not saying like that's how I'm feeling right now,
Hmm.
but I totally understand. At first, I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, that's such a dope album. Like, anyone would be lucky to have that in their discog." And then, you know, now I kind of understand what he was saying. Um, and, uh, I'm still grateful for all the music that I put out during that time and all the music that I'm putting out now. And I'm not looking at the past like uh, with such a painful memory, but I'm still I'm still like in a position where it's like I would understand what Redman is talking about.
Mm.
But for me, I'm actually grateful to have gone through all of those experiences.
Yeah, and so like now looking in that future, like is there anything, I mean, I imagine you're not really very close to any kind of new music, but
Yeah,
is there anything that you could speak on that front or just even like merch or tour dates that fans should look out for?
yeah. Texas, I've got a collab with Morgan Wallen coming out. No, I'm joking.
I was like,
No, no,
I was trying to prepare how to answer that, but what the fuck?
no, I'm kidding. No, I got I have I'm opening for Clipping on August 12th in Montreal. I think it's gonna be a really fun
Oh, that
show.
yeah, I'm going to the show, the Toronto show they have.
Oh,
It's gonna be
sick.
so sick. I love those guys.
Oh, they're amazing. And then I'll be going to Supersonic Festival at the end of August. Then I have a show at Shamefest at the 1st of August. So
Interesting. Yeah, I was trying to think like Morgan Wallen is one of those country artists where like I constantly don't know what he actually has made. I know I've heard it. I heard
yeah,
his music when I'm like around whatever places that we play, but like I was like, wait, is he one of like the good ones?
no,
I don't remember. They have similar names. I'm like,
he's
I
a
do like
terrible
some
one.
country artists, but I was like, no, I actually I was like the guy I do like is fuck it, I don't remember, but he's really popular too. So I'm like, is he that? I'm like, oh shit,
No,
cool.
no,
But
no, no.
I'm like,
Awesome.
that's random. Okay. And you know, like understanding that you have all these influences, like
Yeah,
if there's like a particular sound or style
yeah.
that you'd be interested in trying to explore on a future record, what would that be?
Grunge.
Grunge. Oh,
Yeah,
that could work. That could be cool.
yeah.
That could be cool.
I gotta figure out how to how to like approach it because I
Mm,
know I can make it, right? Dissociation was kind of a foray into like shoegaze, and shoegaze not so far from the stuff that we're doing in grunge. So I think I can do it, but I don't know how to approach it.
hmm.
And uh, I'm really interested in that, and I think I'm gonna keep working at it.
That would be really cool. I could definitely see that working.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah,
but yeah, no, I'm really happy we could do this.
awesome.
Big fan. Everybody needs to check out the new album, check out your back catalog. So much to kind of dive into there, and yeah, your sound, your passion, artistry, it's so refreshing, and yeah, it was a real honor having you on.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
so much. Have a
Yeah.
good day.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rap Music Plug podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to not only support the show, but join the fastest growing community of like-minded indie rap fans, go to patreon.com, search for the Rap Music Plug podcast, and become a patron. You will gain access to an exclusive patron-only Discord that me and 70 plus people engage with on the regular, as well as other patron-only benefits such as bonus episodes, album recommendation reviews, early access to regular episodes, and much more. So if you have any questions about any of the Patreon stuff, or just want to keep tabs on the show, interact with me on rap music and all the great stuff that we can talk about, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at rapmusicplugpod, or shoot me an email at qlctv.podcast@gmail.com. You can also rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify as well. But that's enough self-promotion for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace.